Hailing all the way from Brisbane, Australia, our featured music guest, Harriette Pilbeam, is known musically as Hatchie and has been described as a cosmic concoction of dream pop and shoegaze. Her debut single, Try, in May 2017, received critical success in her native Australia, with more singles and a 5-song EP, Sugar and Spice, that followed. For those of us here in the US, Hatchie really started to make a name for herself with the release of her debut album, Keepsake, in 2019, and 3 incredible singles, Without a Blush, Stay With Me, and my personal favorite, Obsessed. Next month, she releases the widely anticipated follow-up to Keepsake, carefully crafted before and during the pandemic, called Giving the World Away, which is bigger and bolder than anything she's put out to date. And she's following it up with a US tour starting this May. Once we got our time zones in sync, I had the pleasure of visiting with Harriette to discuss her music influences, road tripping through the US, married life, and the story behind Giving the World Away. Here's what she had to say. We are truly globetrotting as we reach out all the way to Australia, and our featured music guest, Harriette Pilbeam, aka Hatchie.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Let's first talk about your music journey. Did you have a music gene from your parents, and did you always aspire to be a musician?
I honestly think, yeah. My parents met working in radio, and they're both really big music lovers. They were both musical when they were younger as well. My mum can sing, but they didn't pursue that side of it themselves. But they definitely encouraged me and my 3 siblings to all pursue it. And we all played instruments throughout school. We were all in choirs and everything like that. And I really latched onto singing from an early age. So it was definitely something I always wanted to do, but I didn't really, believe that it could be a potential career for me until much later in life. And I was in bands, and they felt like I was in friends' bands as more of a hobby as like a teenager. Right. Up until like 24, when I decided I wanted to take it really, really seriously, which is when I started working on this project. And I released the first Hatchie single. I think it was my 24th or 25th birthday. But yeah, until then, I didn't know that really I was capable of pursuing it seriously until then. So I'm glad I gave it a good go.
We are too. Everyone has influences, and having worked with, Robin Guthrie previously, there's a Cocteau Twins influence in there. At times, I feel like I can hear the Sundays or Kate Bush or maybe hints of the Cranberries. Who would you consider your top 3 most influential artists, and why?
You're correct. I would say all of those artists you listed have definitely been influences at some stage in my, writing trajectory. I think even though I'm not as directly influenced by Cocteau Twins these days, and that I don't listen to them as much as I was listening to them a few years ago, I would say that they will still remain a really major one for me. I think, particularly because of the vocal melodies and harmonies that Elizabeth sang, I think will always be like etched in my head and a really big influence. I love New Order. New Order's probably my favorite band ever. If I had to pick one, I don't like picking one, but if I had to, I often say them. I think that's maybe a less obvious one, but I think I definitely have always wanted to recreate that euphoria that they seem to be really good at creating in their music. So that's a big one for me. Another one is probably Kylie Minogue. I think that if you don't know me or you haven't read interviews with me, that might come as a surprise, but I've been a huge fan of her since I was a kid, and I think the pop side of my music is definitely influenced by her, and the fact that she's such a chameleon and that she's tried so many different sounds, and some of them I don't connect with and some of them I really do. She had, that really alternative, quote unquote alternative for Kylie phase in the 90s. Yeah. When she did those 2 records, which was like her self-titled album and the Impossible Princess album, which was with a different label, and those are 2 of my favorite records of hers. So yeah, I think she'd have to be up there for me as well.
That's good company. There's a lot of comfort in being in a band of like-minded individuals. You sort of referred to this earlier, sharing the stage with a group of friends. And after the Go Violets went their separate ways in 2014, was it difficult for you to go out on your own as a solo artist?
It was weird. So I'd been in this other band, Babaganouj, for longer than that. Go Violets was only 2 or 3 years for me. And it definitely had its pros and cons going out alone. I think it can be really nice I think things happen a lot quicker because you have less people to run everything by. You know, we always made decisions together in those bands. And when you don't have 3 other people to text or email or call to make every decision, things run a bit smoother. I think, it was really nice having like a really clear vision that I could follow. But there were definitely elements that were hard. Like at first I struggled doing interviews by myself. I'd get really, really anxious and nervous before them, and now they're fine. And doing videos and things, anything that was about me, I guess, like physically, rather than just me recording, was scary. But I'm really lucky in that throughout this whole project, I've collaborated with my husband, Joe, who's kind of like the other half of Hatchie, really. And he helped me with all my demos starting off, and then has continued to be a part of the project up until this day. He does all of my videos and all of my artwork, and we write and record together too. So I'm lucky that it's not entirely alone, and that I do travel with the same band members everywhere. So it does I get the best of both worlds, really.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You talked about Hatchie, being a family nickname. How did it come about?
It's simple. It's just that my name's Harriette, and then I got Hattie a lot, and then it kind of just turned to Hatchie. I don't know how, when I was really little. And it definitely wasn't my plan for it to become the name of the project. But when Joe found out that's what my family called me, he started calling me that as a joke, kind of teasing me. And then when we were recording the demo for Try and couldn't think of a name to call it, he called it Hatchie demo.mp3. So, and then it just stuck. Anytime I sent the demo to anyone, they were like, "Oh, Hatchie, that's a great name." So here I am. 5 years later.
The rest is history.
Exactly.
On a personal note, I want to ask you about Obsessed, because I'm obsessed with the song. It's on my spring-summer playlist every year. The song and the video really resonated with me during the pandemic at a time when things were being shut down. You really couldn't go anywhere. And it has this wonderful sort of carefree road trip vibe going on that makes you yearn for those silly times and experiences with friends and family. What do you remember most about shooting the video for Obsessed? And do you have a favorite road trip story or experience?
Well, I don't know. Well, it was we took all of that footage from a few tours, mostly across the US, as you can tell from the food and beverages consumed.
I could see that.
Yes, it's pretty easy to pick that one. There were some bits and pieces from other tours as well when we needed to fill in some gaps. My favorite tour story, I don't know. I mean, I think I always say this, but I think my favorite part of being on the road is all the different landscapes, particularly in the US, that you pass by. I think we always do the most driving on that continent. And, even going from the top of one coast to the bottom can look completely different, or going a little bit inland can look completely different when you're driving through places like even, Colorado and things like that. Like, they just look beautiful. And in Australia, I think by comparison with Australia, when you're touring, you really just go around the coast as well, but it's even less of a distance to cover. And it all looks pretty similar unless you go really far inland to like the outback. So it was really interesting that you could, wake up one morning I think we were in Montana, and it was snowing, and it was just like really white and blue coloring out the window, and then you'd fall asleep for a few hours and you'd wake up and everything would be brown or green, just completely different colors. So I think that's like overall one of my favorite memories. But yeah,
That's
cool.
really good. You talked about food, so I have to ask you, what is your must-have or go-to food or snack on the road?
Oh, I don't know. Look, these days I try to be a lot healthier when I'm on the road because it was definitely detrimental to my health with the kind of food that we were eating for a while. I think we just love trying all the different potato chip flavors. That's probably like the most straightforward answer I can give you off the top of my head. We love those voodoo chips that come from New Orleans. I don't think they're not available all over the country, it doesn't seem, but when you can get them, they're so good. I don't know. I mean, I've been like vegan for like 5 years. So the big one for me used to just be hunting down the Impossible burger patty because you couldn't get that in Australia.
You can get it a lot now.
Yeah, I know, it's everywhere now.
Yeah.
But that when we were on the road, 3 years ago, that was a big one.
Of course, we're here to talk about the new album, Giving the World Away, which releases on April 22nd. It's big, it's bold and vibrant, and also more self-confident and reflective. Can you share a little bit about how you arrived at this album and how it kind of represents a departure from Sugar and Spice and Keepsake?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to dig a lot deeper on every aspect of this album. I think when I listen back to Sugar and Spice and Keepsake, I'm still really fond of them and proud of them, but I felt like I was really easily satisfied with my writing on those, which is fine, and that's a good thing to be. But I just wanted to push myself a lot further and hold myself to a higher standard, and not just release the same thing over and over again. So I took a lot more time with the lyrics this time around, and I tried to dig a lot deeper and kind of push myself to question my lyrics and improve them as I went. We were lucky. I mean, I don't want to say lucky. I think the fact that we were stuck at home in lockdown while recording this really helped that. It meant that I did have a lot more time to work on it, and we weren't like, at a studio with these strict time limits to get everything done. So we really recorded it over like 6 months or so. I think just having so much time to reflect meant that I could delve a lot deeper with this one. And yeah, I wanted it to be more suited to a live show, which I think is why it's so bold and vibrant, like you mentioned, and so confident sounding, because I've come into some confidence myself over the last few years of being an artist and just growing into my late 20s rather than my early 20s, which is where I was when I was writing that first EP. So I think part of it just comes with my own personal growth, but also me pushing myself more.
Another fascinating thing that I had read about the album was that when you originally went into it, it was going to be this epic dance party album, but then like everything, it seems like the pandemic changed a lot of things for a lot of folks and how we live our lives and create and travel and those things. And so it sounded like to me it became less about the dance party, but also because of this time alone, more introspective.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think Disenchanted is kind of an indicator of more of the direction I hoped to take it in. And I could have still done that. Like, it was definitely a decision of mine to not do that. It wasn't like, oh, damn, now we can't do this. I just was like, you know what, maybe I don't need to make that kind of record right now. Maybe I need to still cover some ground that I haven't covered yet. And I think I was going through a lot of growth and changes over the last 2 years. And it was really important to me to really capture that in the album, and it helped me get a lot of closure with a lot of personal things by putting them into songs rather than kind of going for the more fun, dancey route.
And that's not to say that there aren't fun, dancey songs on this album. I think it's a really nice blend of,
thank you,
that sort of, just dance all night kind of vibe, as well as, more of the personal pieces.
Yeah, totally. And I also think that it's not impossible to write a fun, dancey song that still covers really, serious stuff. Those two things can exist together. But for me, I felt like I needed to get a few more things out before I could move on to that. So who knows, maybe with the next one, it'll be a little more relaxed and fun.
You're gonna join Kylie and do the locomotion. That's
yeah, exactly right.
How did Quicksand, the Olivia Rodrigo collaboration, come about, and what was that experience like for you?
Well, that one was a song that I started writing in 2019 in between tours, and it had different lyrics, and I had like all of the parts, and Joe helped me at home kind of give it more of a good structure and a really solid bass, and he helped me work on better lyrics that got it to the Quicksand lyric that you hear on it, the final track. And then when we were heading over to America to do a writing trip in February 2020, Dan Nigro, who works with Olivia Rodrigo, was at the top of my list of dream collaborators because he'd worked with a lot of really cool alternative pop artists that I like. And he also had that background of being in a band himself. So I really liked that because I felt like a lot of the time you hear about writers or you do sessions with writers who have never actually really been on the artist side of it themselves, or maybe they've just been in the pop side. And I liked that he'd kind of been this like alternative side of it, and he'd toured as an artist himself. So I felt like we had a lot in common. And so we thought Quicksand would be the perfect song to work on with him. And we took it to him, and yeah, he really like solidified it and turned it into the kind of like pop song it is now, which is great because I think it really needed that kind of nudge in that direction while still maintaining kind of the alternative soundscape that it still kind of sits in, which the additional production and mixing from George Elbrecht really like solidified as well. So it was truly a team effort, that one.
What do you like or dislike about writing with a partner versus writing by yourself?
I like that things can come together a lot quicker. I think you can really fill in each other's gaps of your knowledge and your abilities. So I think my strengths are melodies and harmonies and, chord structures and things, but not necessarily production and definitely not mixing. So that's why I love writing with Joe so much, because we can do it at home in our own time. And he's much better at, engineering the recording and actually physically getting it done, knowing how to achieve certain sounds. If I can hear something in my head, he can really help me get to that point. And so we really balance each other out with our abilities. And that same thing happens with other writers as well, but particularly with Joe and I, because we live together and we've known each other for almost a decade now. I guess if I had to think of a con, is that sometimes if you're writing with someone that you haven't met many times or at all, sometimes it can be hard to translate what each other person wants or what they're trying to say about a sound or something, because you might not have the same musical background as them. So I think at times a song can kind of start going in this direction that you didn't imagine it going in. Sometimes that's great because you get something incredible out of the experience that you never could have gotten by yourself, but sometimes it can feel a bit like it's out of your control, and it's really hard to wind it back. But I think the fact that this is ultimately my project means that I always have the final say, luckily.
Final cut.
Yeah. I should hope so. Yeah.
Recently, you popped up on a few songs by Swim Deep. World's Unluckiest Guy is a fun, breezy summer smash, and your voices are perfectly intertwined on this. But They're on a different record label. They're from the UK. How did that all materialize?
I know, it probably seems very random to people who don't know me. Well, Joe and I have both been really big fans of them for years, particularly Joe. He introduced me to their music when we started dating. And I think we just became kind of internet friends through Hatchie. I think Swim Deep heard of Hatchie. And then Austin came to a Hatchie show when we played the Shacklewell Arms a few years ago. And we kind of kept up the online relationship. And during lockdown in 2020, he sent a few songs that he thought I might be interested in singing on. And I, helped him write my part for World's Unluckiest Guy. And then I just did a bunch of vocals on Darklands. So, yeah, it was a very long, stretched out lead up to it, but we just became friends online because we're fans of one another, really.
You talked about Joe, the ultimate partnership, of course, coming last November when the two of you tied the knot, and you still have that newlywed glow about you.
Thanks.
Do you feel any different, and has it changed anything related to your music? You guys have been together for a long time, so... Yeah, I think for that reason, I don't feel that different. I mean, it's really lovely. We were together for... I think we got married on our 8-year anniversary. So there's not much that could have changed, I guess, in the last 6 months since then. I don't know. I think I just feel so relaxed and content. I don't think that I had any worries before, but if I didn't have any in the back of my mind, they've slipped away now. Any worries about my future, I guess. I mean, I think it's just nice to know that you're in it with someone else. So no matter what happens, you can face everything together is really what I mean about any worries. We just know each other so well. And like I said, we make a really good team creatively. So it's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. The Giving the World Away tour kicks off here in the U.S. in May. What are you most excited about with the tour this year? And are there specific songs that you're really looking forward to performing live?
I'm really excited to see Caroline Loveglow. She's supporting us at all the shows, and I did see her play once when we were in LA a few months ago. But I feel blessed to be able to watch that every night. We're a really big fan of hers. So that's definitely a big one for me. I don't know. I mean, we've been playing a few new songs here. We've been playing Lights On and The Rhythm already. Those are two of the album tracks that we've introduced to the set that aren't released yet. I'm excited to play Giving the World Away, this song, because we actually haven't played that one live yet, but we will be adding it to the set for the album tour. So I'm keen to see how that one comes across, because it's definitely a bit more left field for me. So it'll be interesting to see how people kind of react to that one.
After the tour wraps, what's next for you? Will you take some time off? Will you go back to the studio? Will you continue to play live shows on the road?
It'll be a little bit of everything. We're going to get right back into the swing of things. We have a lot of other tour dates penciled in for the rest of the year that haven't been completely confirmed or announced yet. So hopefully by then we'll know. It's a little bit on the edge of being confirmed right now. So hopefully we've got a bunch more touring, because I really just want to go now that we're getting back on the road and not stop, because I've missed it so much. And you really can just have such a great connection with your audience through touring. And it was such a big part of Hatchie before the pandemic. So it's really important to me that we get back to that. I've, started a little bit of writing here and there, and we've got some plans to write with a few people, but nothing set in stone in terms of recording the next release or anything. So, we're going to take that part slow, but mainly just heaps of shows.
Harriette, thank you so much for joining us, and congrats on the new album and the tour. I mean, we're so excited to have live music back and have you back in the U.S. again. So
thank you. I can't wait. And thanks so much. I really appreciate the well thought out questions. It's nice.
Giving the World Away by Hatchie releases in full on April 22nd. But you can download 3 singles from the album today: This Enchanted, Quicksand, and Giving the World Away. Available on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and all your favorite music sources. And don't forget to check out Hatchie's debut release, Keepsake, and original EP, Sugar and Spice. For all the latest news, tour dates in a city near you, photos and videos, be sure to visit Hatchie.net.